data analytics is one practice area where I think auditors really need to lean in, and that analytical skills and tools should be in every auditor's kit. And if they're not, then auditors should be upskilling themselves in these practice areas so that they can apply these to their challenges.
This episode is brought to you by Greenskies Analytics, an audit analytics service provider that works with internal audit departments that have data analysts and are still frustrated with trying to make analytics actually work, aren't getting the expected ROI, who can't break through the communication barrier between the analysts and the audit team, and those that need experienced direction through an audit analytics strategy and process. Those that feel like they've wasted time and money on trainings, aren't getting the value they want, not prioritizing the highest risk areas for the organizations, or have projects that seemingly never get completed. Do you deal with any of that? If you do, go to the show notes of this episode and click the Greenskies Analytics link, or go to greenskiesanalytics.com to schedule a call and understand how Greenskies Analytics makes analytics actually work for internal audit. This episode is brought to you by Supervisor. Supervisor is a ready-to-use audit analytics platform that integrates with your ERP and any other systems you have to provide actual continuous monitoring for risk across all your transactions. They have more than 350, that's 350 out-of-the-box checks and analytics to enable your team to perform full population testing, detect multiple types of anomalies, and identify potential fraudulent activity. That's going to give you an unparalleled level of assurance in your financial processes. Built by internal audit and accounting experts, so your team can get value from the first day of usage. So imagine having no analytics today, walking in tomorrow, and having up to 350 audit analytics already run. You don't have to necessarily take my word for it, though. Global organizations such as IKEA, Michelin, Lacoste, and numerous others trust Supervisor to enhance their audit capabilities and increase their assurance.
This podcast is also brought to you by Audit Board, the leading cloud-based platform transforming how enterprises manage risk. Audit Board's integrated suite of easy-to-use audit, risk, and compliance solutions streamlines internal audit, SOX compliance, risk management, and security compliance. Automate processes and improve execution with Audit Board's purpose-built solution, which is designed to address the most pressing challenges of today's practitioners. Experience the latest in audit, risk, and compliance technology. Visit auditboard.com to schedule your product walkthrough to see Audit Board's award-winning platform in action today.
Hey, everybody, before we jump into the show, I just want to let you know that the Audit Analytics and AI Conference is September 25th and 26th this year. It's all virtual, so no matter where you are in the world, you can absolutely attend. Recordings are also available, so if you are 12 hours away and don't want to be up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you can purchase the recordings. This is the only conference that's strictly about analytics and AI for internal audit. So you're going to get your practitioners' use cases. This thing is practitioner-led, save for one speaker that we had this year, but everyone else is in your peer group, ranging from the largest internal audit data analytics teams in the world down to the individual contributor who spends, like, hey, I got 50% of my time I can dedicate towards analytics. Each speaker mission is to show you how to actually do what they are talking about. So thought leadership is great, and there will certainly be some of that, but for the most part, that's great. We love the thought leadership. Show us how to actually do it. We are currently at 19 speakers and counting, so we're going to add a few more, and you can get up to 19 CPEs if you attend. Check out the link in the show notes, or you can search for Google the Audit Analytics Conference.com, and you can register there. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audit Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Russell, and today on the show, we have Ben Phillips. He's the Chief Audit Executive at PetSmart. He is also an advisory board member for the CFO Leadership Council. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but as you hear Ben talk about it during the episode, if you're interested, we put links. Ben sent some links to sign up for the CFO Leadership Council in your area, or to even have your CFO participate as well. But I think you'll hear they like this perspective of having, CAEs as part of the council to help kind of add to the conversation. And so in addition to that, we also talk about how Ben uses his internal audit resources to add value and to create change effectively, I might add. And we also talk about from the CFO Leadership Council, the top issues that CFOs are talking about. So Ben, being part of the council, obviously privy to those types of conversations. And so we did something similar a few weeks ago where we talked about, okay, what are CISOs concerned about right now? And if we did an update to that, it would just be CrowdStrike. That's all anyone's seemingly talking about right now. But we wanted to get that CFO perspective also from a CAE who is very connected with those CFOs in the area. And so we talk about the two kind of main areas that CFOs are concerned with right now. Here we go. What is in your internet browsing history and or either way, your ChatGPT history of late?
Sure. I think I'll start with the disclaimer that everything we talk about today are my personal views and are not necessarily the views of my employer. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the company in any way.
Excellent.
As far as my history, I think of ChatGPT as kind of a really bad first draft writer for documents. So I recently had it write a letter of recommendation for a former colleague of mine. I wanted to incorporate this kind of laundry list of specific skills and experiences that colleague asked me to highlight in the letter. And I didn't want it to read like a laundry list. So I put this into ChatGPT. And what I got was a bad first draft, but it probably saved me like 45 minutes of work at the outset. And I actually really like what we ended with.
Yeah, I like that a ton. Basically any kind of writing is always good for me anyway. I always tell people somewhat jokingly, we do a podcast instead of blogs because I don't like writing, like I'm not just great at it. And so anytime you could use it for something like that, I think is a really good use case. Job description, stuff like that would just, especially being analytical. And I don't know, Ben, maybe you're over analytical too. I don't know, but it would take me forever to do something like that. Well, I know off air, when we were talking, you said this phrase and I wrote it down verbatim. Using internal audit resources effectively to add value and create change is kind of like your go-to. It's your mission. It's what you do. How are you doing that? I feel like that's what probably if we took a poll, a lot of auditors would say, yeah, I agree with that. We should do that. But any specifics you can share with the audience on what you're doing to do that?
For sure. I think this is such an important question for internal audit practitioners to ask themselves. In a lot of ways, I think of internal audit as like a professional services firm that's embedded within a company. Most other business functions have specific responsibilities and tasks that they have to do every day to kind of keep the trains running on time. On the other hand, internal audit really has a blank sheet of paper, and it's up to us to identify, I think, the relevant business challenges and problems that we choose to tackle. And if we choose wisely, we can become the trusted business partners that I think the best promise of internal audit is. And on the other hand, if we choose poorly, we can become the kind of dreaded ticky-tacky got-ya auditors, and nobody wants to be that. So I think that internal audit is best served by leveraging its existing risk assessment processes to kind of engage with leadership across the organization and understand what obstacles they're facing in running their areas of the business, and kind of repeat across the entire organization. And the auditors compile a population, if you will, of these challenges and obstacles. And then we figure out where our resources can best be applied to help resolve these issues. I think, some challenges can be kind of maybe more or less amenable to like the remit of internal audit. But if you're assessing risk interactively, you can really tease out these kind of organizational opportunities to help internal audit achieve its mission. I think that as far as networking itself goes, it's best approached as a networking opportunity. If I kind of come in and say, "Hi, I'm Ben from the internal audit department. Can you share your kind of 2-minute elevator pitch on what you do at our company and what are the obstacles you face to that?" That's really how you can get to a good conversation. That's a much better way to identify business problems and risk than kind of using canned questionnaires and surveys.
Got it. If I was your CEO, CFO, CDO, COO, whatever, do you have like a bucket of questions almost that you would ask, or like, hey, this is kind of my go-to, similar to how we always ask everybody about their browsing history and ChatGPT history right now. We always have like a question that we ask every guest, and that's the current one. Do you kind of have like a go-to question that like, I usually get a pretty good response from this one. Anything that you could share again with the audience to where when they're in that position, they can go, okay, this is a pretty good question. I should try to work this in somehow.
It's fair. I think my honest approach in that area is to triangulate what's the news of the day, what's relevant, what's happening in the business. So if the question is current, right? I mean, if you're at a company and you sell widgets and your problem is widget sales are down, how do I sell more widgets? That's kind of a general question. Maybe that's a little bit canned, but if there's some particular rising costs, some competitor, something very specific about that, about why widgets aren't being sold, or you've got turnover in key positions for marketing or product or something else, you could really focus on, hey, how is this factor affecting us today? And is there a play or a way that internal audit can use our resources to help better understand this problem or better explore which alternatives or solutions might be the correct one?
Okay. And so it sounds like that if we summarize that, it's basically know the business and then talk to the executives about the business. It's a somewhat common question we ask on the show is, how do you understand the business? What do you do? Do you look at what your competitors are doing? There was someone from Charlie Page is from Verizon, their audit team, and he goes to Reddit, the website, and then looks at the Verizon subreddit and then looks at the feedback from, end users or customers, or, it's Reddit, so could be Russian bots also. But either way, I thought that was a really clever idea to do it. Is there, how do you stay up to date on what's going on in the business and the industry, et cetera?
I think to understand the business, you've really got to maintain ongoing dialogues with your network in the company, for starters. So I talk to the CEO, the CFO, the heads of major functions, marketing and product, to understand their points of view. I mean, they've all got lots of experience across different companies in our industry, different points of view on what's happening now and what's likely to happen, in the future, and understand input from all those sources, to try to make my best professional guess as to, what it is that we need to focus on in internal audit and how we can help support those professionals in achieving their objectives, right? It again comes back to networking. If you have a good relationship with those constituents, they're going to talk to you about what they see as the business problems and how you can help add value.
I think a lot of people hear even the word networking, and I was one of those also, like, here's a networking event, and I'd immediately just be like, ooh, I don't want to go to that. Like, I'm not super extroverted at all. And so whenever I'd hear that, I'd just be like, yeah, I'll go get my 2 drink tickets, get in and get out. And so I think networking kind of has this, it's not a negative connotation to it, but I think it does elicit some fear in a lot of people. Do you think it's fair if we changed it from networking with whoever to just go hang out with whoever?
Yeah, I think that's right. When I say networking, again, it's got a lot of potentially negative connotations, and I think it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I think context is the key, right? So if I'm talking with someone internally about their business and internal audits function in the company, we're focused on our company's challenges and what we can do jointly or individually to help address those challenges. So it's about the context. If I'm at a professional event, meeting other people at other companies in my function, or other people that are, trying to sell me goods and services, it's a completely different context. So maybe I'm not talking about the specific business. We don't have that kind of common language of here's our company and our challenges, but it may be more of a sales thing or more of a job search thing. So I think the context is everything for the broad category term of networking. I think it's important for internal audit leaders to take stock of their team skills and abilities and really look for practical ways to apply them to the challenges organizations face. Because a lot of the big challenges that you're going to get from the executive suite are probably not things where internal audit can really make a difference, such as customer demand, for example, right?
Yeah.
If customer demand is down, it's going to be hard for internal audit to come up with practical solutions to that. I think one area that is absolutely essential for all auditors is data analytics. All data analytics is one practice area where I think auditors really need to lean in, and that analytical skills and tools should be at every auditor's kit. And if they're not, then auditors should be upskilling themselves in these practice areas so they can apply these to their challenges.
Perfect. As an analytics guy, I totally agree. So I love that for sure. All right. Something else that we had talked about, and this is really what one reason I wanted to have you on is we were connected on LinkedIn, and I saw some CFO Leadership Council discussions or posts or something like that. And it seemed like every time someone, maybe this is what it was, they joined, and every time you would say, hey, congrats, welcome to the crew, or, whatever it was. And I went, oh, that's interesting. What's Ben doing on the CFO Leadership Council? And so as we talked about that, you said there's basically two topics that you all have been talking about, AI and inflation. Probably no surprise that those are the two topics, especially AI. Is there anything from those conversations you've had with the CFO Leadership Council that you could share with the listeners to provide some level of insight around those two topics and what is, at the CFO level, maybe even the specifics would be fantastic to the extent you can. What are the specific conversations that are being had around that? And what is your perspective as a CAE, Ben, for those CFOs?
Well, this is such a great question, Trent. I guess, first of all, a little plug for the CFO Leadership Council. I'm on the advisory board for the chapter here in Phoenix, which is a fairly new chapter. I've been doing this for about 3 years. I've made great connections with the community of financial professionals here in the Phoenix area, and have gotten a ton out of that group. And hopefully I can give a few things back on the way. Regarding those two topics, I think, if inflation is hurting your company, either through kind of dampening demand and sales or through, margin erosion due to like higher input costs, I think your CFO probably is losing sleep over this, right? And I think internal audit probably is not top of mind as a solution to these scenarios. But I do think when I think of specifically what can internal audit do, one area I think of on the kind of risk heat map is fraud, right? I think fraud is moving up in terms of likelihood. I think inflation can really change the balance of forces in the fraud triangle.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think it has the unique potential to create kind of unshareable pressures, maybe for employees that are on a personal level near the financial margins, right? This can ratchet up their incentive to make maybe different decisions, such as engaging in fraudulent behavior. So I think internal audit can, from a practical matter, increase the weighting of that risk factor of fraud in its assessments, and then really engage in brainstorming and really robust sessions to assess the company's processes. It's the old adage: what could go wrong? What controls do we have? And then try to design procedures to provide assurance around those controls. This again, right back to analytics. This is an area where analytics, and I think process automation is kind of a related field, can really be a force multiplier for internal audit. Whether we're testing entire populations or using analytical tools like Benford analysis, we have more tools than ever to find those outliers in these massive kind of oceans of transactions and do further investigation. So I think from a practical level, that's something internal audit can do to help pressures created by inflation.
Okay. And the other topic being AI. I mean, can't we just tell AI to fix inflation? That's how it works, right?
I wish.
What's the nature of the conversation around AI? Is it risk, and we're scared that people are putting data, our company data IP in there,
Yes.
or is it?
I think AI is such a new field, at least relative to how it's applied in kind of corporate operations, that I'd say that the list of unknown unknowns is probably much larger than the list of known unknowns. Sorry to poorly paraphrase Donald Rumsfeld there, but anyways, in terms of the impact of these things on the sleep habits of CFOs, I think the latter category is probably more influential, meaning the known unknowns. I think internal audit has to assess the extent to which their organization either already has or is developing frameworks and controls to protect privacy and proprietary company information. To your example, you don't want employees feeding information into LLMs that are proprietary company information. That I think is the baseline. More sophisticated approaches would have internal audit, I think, looking at use cases where AI capable tools can enhance operations. And I'm not necessarily thinking about like LLM here, more like machine learning, process automation bots, and the like. I think internal audit can help CFOs understand where the pain points are in their organizations and where tools like automation bots can be applied to either automate the routine tasks or do complicated things quickly that would take an associate a lot of time. So I think there are use cases there if the auditors understand A, how the tools can work and what are their strengths and limitations, and B, where is our company having pain points and inefficiencies.
If the listener should do one thing after listening to this episode to add value, we'll say, to their organization or to be a better auditor, do their job better, what would that be?
I think it's networking more effectively in their organization. I think you want your entire internal audit team out there developing and maintaining relationships across your organization at every level. I think if your staff is effective at developing and maintaining these relationships, you can get at least two immediate benefits. I think first, when you're doing traditional audit work or doing controls work and you have a question, you need some more information, invariably processes run from one department to another. You can quickly determine who you need to call to get the information, whether it's just through a casual chat, an email, a phone call. Maybe if I have a question on something specific within the accounts payable department, I don't need to call the controller. I can have one of my staff can call someone that's actually doing the work and get the answer pretty quickly. So it's a real time saver. And I think the second is if you have a strong set of relations across your company, they'll call you. The business will call the auditors to, whether it's talk about specific questions or problems, or to act as maybe a neutral but informed sounding board for ideas. When you have that level of engagement with your organization, you're going to be able to influence change in your company and add value. And hopefully people will say nice things about the auditors when they're not in the room.
Perfect. And if this blends into the next question, then that's fine. But because that's what you want to leave the audience with. But is there anything else that you would want to leave the audience with as we close out?
I think try to be flexible and, keep a growth mindset about learning new skills and developing new abilities. Internal audit sets its own agenda in a lot of ways. So the organization's looking for professionals to come and bring new ideas and thoughts on how to run the business better. I think it was the author of the book, Carol Dweck, who said, becoming is better than being. So I always encourage my staff to keep growing professionally so that, they can work hard today to become the professionals they want to be tomorrow. So flexible mindset, that is the one thing I think internal audit will benefit from.
Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Audit Podcast. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, I'm sure there's a subscribe button somewhere, so please hit the subscribe button there. If you're listening through iTunes or Spotify, feel free to go give us that 5-star rating. It only took me about 16 seconds to give myself a 5-star review, and it really helps to get future guests to come on the show, so we'd really appreciate that. Lastly, be sure to check out the show notes and follow us on all our social media channels on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Also, if interested, please sign up for our weekly newsletter from the Audit Podcast. Thank you all. Have a great one.